The winter night sky might look peaceful, but for some, it holds a chilling darkness that has nothing to do with the early sunset. These are true stories from people who faced their worst fears when the world was covered in snow and ice. Our first story comes from a user named Clara. She was house-sitting for a wealthy family in a remote, snow-covered mansion. The first few days were peaceful, just her and the family's old golden retriever, Max. But on the third night, a blizzard hit, cutting off the power and phone lines. That's when she started hearing things. Soft footsteps in the upstairs hallway. A faint whisper that seemed to ride the wind howling outside. She tried to tell herself it was just the old house settling, the wind playing tricks on her. But then Max, who was usually calm, started growling at an empty corner of the living room, his fur standing on end. Clara grabbed the heaviest fireplace poker she could find and a flashlight. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. She decided to barricade herself in the master bedroom until morning. As she was pushing a heavy dresser against the door, she heard a distinct, slow scraping sound. It was coming from the other side of the door. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It sounded like fingernails dragging across the wood. Max was now whimpering, cowering behind her. Terrified, she didn't make a sound. The scraping continued for what felt like an eternity before finally stopping. She spent the rest of the night huddled in a closet with Max, listening to every creak and groan of the house, convinced she wasn't alone. When the snowplow finally cleared the driveway the next afternoon, she ran out of that house and never looked back. The family later told her the house was built on old, forgotten burial grounds. Next, we have a story from a truck driver, Dave. He was on a long-haul route through the desolate mountain passes of Wyoming in the dead of winter. It was late, around 2 a.m., and the road was a sheet of ice. The swirling snow made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Suddenly, his headlights caught a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a woman, wearing a thin, old-fashioned dress, completely unsuitable for the freezing weather. Her face was pale, and she just stood there, staring at him. Dave slammed on the brakes, his truck jackknifing and barely stopping just inches from her. His heart was pounding. He expected her to be terrified, to run, to do something. But she just stood there, her expression completely blank. He rolled down his window to yell at her, to ask if she needed help. But as the window opened, she was gone. Vanished. He looked everywhere in his mirrors around the truck. There were no footprints in the fresh snow except for his tire tracks. It was as if she had evaporated into the cold night air. Shaken, he drove to the next truck stop. When he told the old-timer at the counter what he'd seen, the man's face went pale. He said that decades ago, a young woman had frozen to death in a blizzard on that same stretch of road, waiting for her fiancé who never came. They say her spirit still waits on that lonely highway, a chilling warning to travelers. Our final story is from two college friends, Mike and Josh, who went on a winter camping trip in the Adirondacks. They were experienced hikers, but they underestimated the severity of the coming storm. They set up their tent just as the first heavy flakes began to fall. By nightfall, they were completely snowed in. Deep in the night, Mike was woken up by a strange sound. It was a high-pitched, chattering noise, almost like laughter, but distorted and unnatural. It was coming from right outside their tent. Josh heard it too. They both froze, listening. The chattering was accompanied by the sound of something heavy dragging itself through the deep snow, circling their tent, over and over. They grabbed their ice axes, their only means of defense. The sound got closer, so close they could hear it sniffing and scratching at the tent fabric. They were too scared to even breathe. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sound stopped. They waited tense and silent for the rest of the night. At first light, they cautiously unzipped the tent. All around their campsite, there were huge, unidentifiable tracks in the snow, though they weren't from a bear or a deer or any animal they recognized. The tracks led off into the woods and then just disappeared, as if whatever made them had simply vanished. They packed up in record time and never went winter camping in that area again. Still can't explain the sounds or the tracks they saw that day. The silence of a winter night can be deceiving. Sometimes the most terrifying things are waiting just beyond the warmth of your fireplace. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you in the winter? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more true horror stories. Stay safe out there.